Hey everybody, logging into Forza this week. First race I came across for the touring cars was Lime Rock Park, a tiny little track where chaos is bound to occur. And for this one, we're going to pick what seems to be the poster child for all the touring cars, the one that everyone loves, the Link. Still a very strong car to be fair. But anyways, hopping into this one, we weren't going to qualify. We did practice for a while though and managed to set a time of around 53 seconds, which was only good enough to put us at about P5. But one thing to keep in mind is we kept the mediums on throughout the practice, and a few of those up front did qualify with the softs. So I was feeling pretty good about that time. There were a few others that decided not to qualify as well, so we are still going to be in P16 out of a relatively full field. But this was probably one of the most fun races I've had in Forza for a while, including probably the closest finish, so really excited to get into this one.
Middle of the pack towards the back. First race of the week.
Not going to matter that it's the first race of the week though. We're going to attack immediately on the outside of this Honda going into the first turn. It's going to put us on the outside, definitely a nervous position to be in. We're going to work our way back in, a couple cars off to the left already. And it's going to be really bumpy through here, lots of proximity arrows once again. Audi's going to rejoin, hitting the MG. Ford's going to end up spinning them out.
Oh man.
And we're just going to T-bone right on through them, losing a lot of momentum though, so a bit of a setback early. Coming up to turn 3 though, we're going to have a lot of momentum on Lucasson, and we're going to really just kind of push on the inside. We're going to force our way up onto this curve, kind of bullying our way through here. Really want that position back immediately. Another car off to the right ahead of us, so I guess it wouldn't have mattered, we would have gotten it anyway, but we just pushed our way up into 15th casually and comfortably. Definitely nothing to see here. At this point though, we'll have about a 1.5 second gap to the next position ahead, Higa Kamikaze or Higa Kamikaze, not sure. But going into the final turn, that's also not going to matter.
Oh my goodness. So many people.
Yeah, I think about 4 people went off right there, so we're just going to have incredible speed coming down the main straight. It's going to put us into the top 10 starting the second lap, so not bad. Coming into the big bend for the second time, we are going to gain a lot of ground on Kamikaze, and we're going to actually have a little bit of a look to their outside coming on the exit, but it's not really there, so we have to fall back for a moment. We are going to set ourselves up for a move on turns 3 and 4 though. One thing to keep in mind is if you hold yourself really narrow coming out of turn 3, sometimes you can just swoop right up underneath your opponent on turn 4. It's probably my favorite move to make on this track when the opportunity presents itself. Through all of that though, we'll notice that Harris had a bit of a moment on the exit of turn 4. It's going to allow us to close the gap really quickly. But as we come into the final turns, once again, we're not going to have to worry too much about that position just yet.
Oh, there's another one. Ooh, sneaking by.
So up into P8 already after a couple incidents in the final turns. As we go down this straight trying to catch up with Harris though, I do want to do a quick check-in on the leader. They're about 7.5 seconds ahead for our Danny K there. But going back into turns 1 and 2, we're going to close the gap a lot on Harris. There's going to be an Audi off ahead, probably just clipped their outside tires into the grass and got sucked off into the abyss. Another free position gained there, but we're going to have a look on the inside of Harris. It's not quite there yet, and we're going to have a bit of a deja vu moment. We're going to hold ourselves really narrow on turn 3 and just swoop right back underneath for turn 4. And man, that one just feels good every time. It'll also put us up in a P6 for now, and we have quite a bit of a gap to catch up to Goat and Panic, so several laps later we do finally make it happen.
Not sure if our tires are going to make it at this rate.
Yeah, you can hear me expressing some concern for tire wear. That will become a factor later in the race. For now though, Goat and Panic's going to go a little bit wide on this turn. We're going to have the better run, and we're going to be able to make the pass pretty handily as we go down the main straight, putting us up into P4 for the time being. And now starting lap 8, things are starting to feel pretty real. We're getting a glimpse of the podium up ahead, Roger Evolution there. And checking in on the leader again, we brought that gap down to about 5 seconds, so I'm starting to think there's a real chance we can get up there with about half of the race left. That earlier concern for tire wear will start to rear its head a little bit though, as we're not quite halfway through the race and our front left is going to go ahead and turn yellow. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to end up doing here, because if I stayed out for another lap, it might be pretty rough and I may end up losing time depending on if they went in ahead. But otherwise it could make for a really difficult last lap if I go ahead and go in now. Coming to the end of the lap though, it's just going to have to be an impulse decision.
Alright, here's going to come the question. Do we try to stay out? Nope, we're going in, following everybody.
And the nice thing about Lime Rock Park is you can throw it into the pits going about 125 miles an hour. The tech they use to slow you down to the pit speed limit is unmatched. An interesting thing to note though is that coming into the pits we were behind Roger, but coming out we're actually going to be behind Nico, the person that was in P2. So I'm not really sure what was going on there. Maybe they also had to refuel a little bit. Looking back at their info from the beginning of the race, it doesn't look like it. Maybe they were just slow to select a menu option on tires, but they're going to have a really big moment on the big bend, and that's going to allow us to get right up behind them almost immediately on the exit of the pits. That'll throw us into a battle for what's P6 right now, but considering some others up ahead haven't gone to the pits, I still kind of consider this the battle for P3. But yeah, here in the moment, we've got 666 goats right ahead of us, 1 goat in panic behind us. And now that we're getting up towards the front, it is going to be a lot harder to start making the overtakes cleanly. But with plenty of time left in the race, we can definitely take our time. Try to be methodical about it instead. Not going to help ourselves out for a moment though, as we missed the apex on turn 6. So we'll lose a little bit of ground, but up ahead there's going to be a smoke screen.
Uh-oh, can't see. Sorry, goat in panic.
I was kind of apologizing there because I hit the brake hard in response to that smoke screen. It looks like it was a back marker since there was no position gain. But we did lose a lot of momentum and space from Nico up ahead of us. We can see though that he's closed the gap on Roger pretty solidly, so P2 is getting really close to us now. Also have to remember that they have that 4-second penalty up there, so we at least have P3 at the moment. And during this race, I just couldn't help but notice that gap slowly coming down to F4R Danny K ahead. I just keep wondering if I'm going to have time to close that gap while also passing these last couple cars. But let's just focus for a moment on closing the gap to Nico ahead. Alright, the final turn here is going to be our moment. Nico's going to end up going wide and going into the grass a bit. It's going to give us the speed to go by pretty cleanly before we start the next lap, officially putting us up into P3 with 7 laps to go. I do go a little bit defensive into turn 1. I was a little bit nervous Nico might have an opportunity to re-overtake if I didn't, but it looks like we got through unscathed. He will be hanging out there though for a while as we try to chase down P2. Nico is definitely not a slow driver in this race. But all we can do for the moment is try to focus ahead on Roger closing that gap to officially get P2. So doing everything I can to not get wrapped up on the fact that Nico is still right behind us. Now as we go around the uphill or turn 5, we do kind of clip the curve a little bit right there and it throws us out. And that was one thing I noticed on this track compared to previous Forza games, like you kind of had to fully commit to the curve or else it would kind of slightly push you out. So something to keep in mind as you drive on it. Maybe it's different for other cars. Now though, on the final turn of this lap, it's going to be our turn to go a little bit wide, so we're going to lose a little bit of momentum on Roger. We are going to stay in the tow though, so we won't lose too much ground. Have to keep in mind though that Nico is still 0.2 seconds behind us going into Big Bend, so we're definitely all pretty close right here. But as we go around and come out of Big Bend, Roger's actually going to kind of just concede the position, I think. He goes off to the right and brakes really early. And honestly, I didn't expect this, so I end up kind of accidentally braking early myself, and that causes Nico to hit us in the back. And unfortunately, the game just thought that was so terrible of him, so it handed him a half-second penalty. Definitely not deserved in the slightest, but it didn't end up changing the result of the race at all. Now we're finally up into P2. It looks like we're less than 4 seconds behind F4R Danny K up there. We've got about 5 laps to go or so, a little more than that. It'll be about 3 laps later though before things will start to get interesting. We see that F4R Danny K is starting to encounter some back markers, and while they are ghosted in Forza, they do present a bit of a visual challenge. And I feel like I noticed just over these next couple turns that it really is causing some difficulties for him. We closed the gap almost half a second in 2 turns. We also see a little bit of dust get kicked up ahead, but going through the final turn, F4R is actually definitely going to have a bit of a moment.
Oh man, F4R. What happened? Oh, this is going to be a battle now. Our tires are going to be gone in the last lap.
Unfortunately for F4R, that did bring our battle into fruition a little bit earlier than expected. Now with 2 laps left, we're now only about half a second behind. We do still have the visual issue of the back markers to deal with here. And as I said there a moment ago, we are going to have issues with tires on the last lap. Fortunately though, we're going to end up getting through the back markers pretty quickly, and they won't present too much of a visual issue for us. But now the race with F4R is going to truly begin as we head up the hill. We're going to get a really good run on the exit, and I'm actually going to immediately start to look to the inside here, but I got a bit nervous, I got a bit spooked, I didn't want to cause an incident coming into these last laps. I decided we had over a lap for now, so I was going to take it easy, but unfortunately I think I probably should have pushed for that, because on this straight I'm a little bit further behind him than I'd like to be, and while I'm in the tow it's just not going to be enough to give me a run for the big bend. I'm going to look to the inside anyway, but it's just not there. But now this is officially the last lap, and as we can see our tires are not doing well. I suspect that F4R is dealing with a similar issue, so it's going to be a bit of a battle of tire wear. But this whole lap we're really just going to be looking for a way through. He goes a little bit slow through here, but he holds himself narrow as well, covering the move that I like to make on turn 4. We're going to be all over the back of him. I look to the outside, it's not there. Switch to the inside, a little bit of contact on the back. The door is closed for turn 5. I have to back off a little bit, looking to try to get a run on him before turn 6. And we are going to look to the inside here, but once again, they're just really not getting a great run. We try to hold a narrow line to make sure there's space on the outside. Coming up into turn 7, I'm finally going to get a good run, but I don't want to push him off the track. I try to leave space, and I'm going to try to focus on the exit for this. And I do have a bit more speed coming out, but man, it's just so close, and it's just not going to be enough.
So close. Man, that was awesome, though. Look at that gap.
Yeah, that was a really fun race, and we were only separated by 0.015 seconds. I think the closest finish I've had in Forza thus far. And with that finish, that'll end up putting our rating up to 49.49 for now. As I've said before, it'll probably flux up and down. At the end of this one, though, the race was just too good. I had to go ahead and send F4R a message. And during the podium ceremony, he responded and made me chuckle a little bit. Definitely was struggling with his tire grip at the end, as were we. But anyway, guys, that'll do it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll be putting out more soon. But until then, we'll see you next time.